Sit back, relax. Try to maintain your composure. You are about to become connected.
Welcome to the Connect, that's what it's called, isn't it? The Connect podcast, number 9. We're here with another very special guest, Sonny Vice, and we're going to talk about some shit, so you motherfuckers better listen, and listen well, okay?
That's right.
Alright.
I
don't know what...
Shall we?
So we were just talking about before, actually, let's just continue that conversation we were having. Should have pressed record. Everyone missed out. We were just talking about before. So, there was, let's get right into the midst of it. There was, you heard on the radio, Sonny, there was a figure of about 17 billion or something that could have possibly brought X amount of people, if not everyone out of
it was
poverty.
specifically fed and housed all the people living under the poverty line.
Well, did you hear the statistic this Christmas that all the money spent in the US on Christmas decorations could have lifted every single person in the US out of homelessness?
So we're not talking Christmas decorations as in like household, I brought a Christmas tree and yada yada.
Yeah.
We're talking about Christmas decorations that you used on the fucking streets by the councils and that.
Wow.
So could have lifted everyone out of homelessness. Like another statistic, 18.5 million houses that have been foreclosed, 4.5 million homeless people. But you were saying you heard 17 billion could have fed and clothed everyone, clothed and housed everyone that was homeless. But then you've got companies such as, the Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, that has a net worth of around about 500 billion.
Plus Warren Buffett's money. Warren Buffett donated 200 billion.
200 billion, and they're giving people vaccines. But they can't get 5% of that and then just feed and clothe and house everyone.
Well, it's a con. I mean, here's the problem, if you have these countries, if you have Africa, say, without poverty, that would be
boring.
Everything would firstly,
what the fuck are we going to talk about?
No. You have these people that do this aid to Africa, run the UN, do the NGO, non-governmental organizations, charities, etc., etc.
The whole industry based on Africa being poor.
Firstly, there's an industry based on Africa being poor, but at the end of the day, people that donate to these organizations and foundations, they're the limitation. Even with all the inefficiencies of NGOs, and they generally manage to procure about 30% of what the public give to them. What would happen if these countries started getting out of poverty? What's the next step? It's education, it's industrialization. They'd start hanging on to their own resources. And
that's fucked.
Oh, yeah.
That's fucked.
You see, I don't think Bill Gates is sitting there and then, people owning the big Fortune 500 companies, I don't think they're sitting there rubbing their palms going, I'm really enjoying that these people are poor. But most definitely they're thinking, like, we're getting all this coltan, which is a really rare metal that we need for every single electronic device, for next to nothing.
Absolutely.
If Congo or Zaire, the Democratic Republic of Congo,
I love that.
I mean, if they had a government that had the interest of its citizens at hand, an iPod would cost an extra $100, and every Congolese
would not be under the control of a warlord.
Wouldn't be under control of a warlord, skinny as fuck, dying from lack of sanitation.
Exactly.
Look, Gaddafi was the perfect example.
Yes.
All right, I mean, there's the guys, but I lived in Libya for 9 years. That's something I didn't tell you guys.
Holy shit!
So I lived on...
Holy shit!
So Sonny's from Bosnia originally. He moved here in 2010.
Yeah, so...
I went to uni in Canberra. And now he's in Melbourne. But so he lived in Libya for 9 years.
See, the war in Bosnia started, we had to get out. My dad happened to be in Libya. Both of my parents are engineers, and my dad was working on something there. And, we wound up moving to Libya. And, there's
was
no
was
such...
Gaddafi?
Gaddafi alright?
Yeah, Gaddafi
Is he
has...
alright guy?
I mean, look, let's... I don't know. The question of whether Gaddafi...
Was he there then?
He was there then.
He was there.
But, you know,
Yeah,
he ruled for over 40 years.
40 years, yeah.
Right, now, here's... I don't know if the guy was, you know, sane or insane. I don't know what he did to his political opponent.
He was had a fashion sense, that's for sure.
He had a fashion sense. I just want to get something straight. The guy fed his people. I don't think, you know, there are even foreign expats, the Sudanese that would come to Libya illegally across the border to get fed, you know, jobs.
Yeah, and
they'd sit under a bridge, and, you know, they'd be pretty homeless. They'd be sitting under a bridge, but, like, even they weren't homeless because he had the national subsidy for bread.
Yeah.
He had the mosques would open the doors at night. People would, you know, sleep in there, and then they'd kick him out in the morning.
Really?
You know, you'd get if it was raining, all the poor people would go into the mosques, and there was a mosque in every bloody corner.
Yeah.
The bread was subsidized; it was free. When the bakeries closed at 6, all the remaining bread, which is literally tons of bread that's, you know, a few hours old, was just out on the street for you to take.
Wow.
Oh, that's
amazing.
You know,
I think bakers a lot, and here we're not allowed to give away the bread at the end of the day because of OH&S. If someone gets sick from the bread that you haven't sold them, they sue the company.
Yeah.
That's
so hold on, continue. Yeah.
So you have this country, you know, labeled. Now the roads in Libya. See, when I moved to Australia, I see these like beautiful black roads with white lines, but I realized car's bouncing. I can't read. I'm getting headaches.
Yeah.
Like the roads in Libya. The guy was basically, my oil is worth 15, 20 billion a year. It's just some stupid amount of money, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm already living in I got 5 houses. Every one of my sons is a Ferrari, and I'm still left with 99%. You know, of that income. Yeah. So what am I going to do with it? You know, he builds the best roads in Africa. He realizes the country's lacking fresh water. He has freshwater wells, like, you know, 5,000 k's away in the heart of the desert near the spring of the Nile.
Holy
transports
shit.
that water through, you know, giant pipes 2 meters across, and starts up a giant sort of farming network.
Wow.
Gives away all this land to, you know, anybody who wants land, who wants to be a farmer.
Yeah.
You know, top 20% of their high school graduates get scholarships to study abroad. Like, you know, that's a massive amount. We're talking, you know, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So the guy literally had a ton of money, and he decided his people are going to live good, and that he is the king of the country, and nobody should oppose him, otherwise they will die. But quite frankly, highest living standard on the continent. You know, if the amount of the government would build you a house if you're Libyan once you're married.
If you get married, you get a free house. I fucking read that. That's unbelievable. But you know, everything you're talking about sounds like socialism to me. You know, you know, that's socialist. That's communist talk. I wouldn't like.
And you know what? It is. You know,
it is. Everyone lives well. That's a fucking brain cracker, isn't it?
It's inefficient. You know, it's inefficient. It's bureaucratic. It's totalitarian. I mean, I don't want to say Gaddafi. You know, it was awesome, but quite frankly, every single person born in that country with a Libyan passport knows he will never be hungry, knows he will never be homeless, and
if you want to work hard, you have the potential to be everything that you can be.
But isn't that what essentially any government is for? Is those survival things, necessities? If anything, fuck off with everything else. Just make sure that we.
That's sort of why we established a government.
Are you guys familiar with the whole anarcho-capitalist kind of ideology? You know, the guy like Stefan Molyneux, Ron Paul.
We love Stefan
Molyneux.
So
he's great.
You know, if you listen to it, you know, I'd agree with about 85%, but at some point in time, you know, that paradigm of, you know, mega free market capitalism falls apart, and it falls apart on the premise that I think every human being has a right to live. I mean, you certainly agree with that. Now,
absolutely.
The notion that we all compete, you know, with each other for providing people with goods and services, and, you know, we all mature at 18 years old. That I agree with that, but unfortunately, it doesn't take into account the fact that, an 18-year-old that's grown up in Frankston with 2 drug-addicted parents kind of cannot compete fairly in an open market with an 18-year-old that's gone to John's College.
Yeah.
Wherever in Brighton. It's not the notion that that's somehow some kind of a level playing field.
You just have to work hard, and then you'll have everything.
It's insane.
It's a similar concept to the voting, and that you can't vote and have a successful democracy unless everybody's educated to the same level and understand their environment. It's the same sort of thing. You're going to have disparities.
See, I agree with voting and democracy, but not on a national level, because, see, here's the thing. And somebody like, whatever, Julia Gillard says, I read my lips, no carbon tax, and passes the card. Like, most Australians don't want it.
No, yeah.
Now, here's the problem. This is some person in Canberra that nobody ever gets to see. If the government that you voted in was only ever local, and some guy says, read my lips, this is what I'm going to deliver, and he goes back on that, man, you'd have a mob at his door, by 7 o'clock that night, and he'd be out. Because we have this giant freaking bureaucracy, and
that's the whole argument with globalization, and making things of that, and how the benefits of keeping things local, and people always sort of assume that, the bigger, the better, the more efficient, the larger things are, and globalization is good because it allows more efficiency.
Didn't Obama,
but it's not. Why does local always have to be seen as the bad thing?
Obama just put a stop to that because he just passed a bill saying that there is not allowed to be any protests within the vicinity of where he is as a president. Like, the FBI is
no protest.
No protest.
No free speech here.
No free speech wherever the president or certain members of...
You can't tell me what you think of me.
You can't tell me what you think of me close to me because the FBI will arrest you and arrest you with a minimum prison sentence. Like, it's to that point. Like,
that is so
I don't know what's going on over there. It's outrageous. Like,
that's kind of like, this is where I go nuts on the capitalism versus socialism debate, because, see, you're falling victim to giant tyrannies, giant bureaucracies either way.
Yeah.
And socialism, when you have a government that decides that, all right, we're going to distribute everything and provide everything for everybody, and they're a government.
Yeah.
You're going to have...
You have to rely on them so heavily.
You have one organization that everything depends on. Yeah. There is no kind of trial and error. That there's a massive sort of chain of command.
Yeah.
And big bureaucracies always get corrupt. And
surely, yeah.
Now, if people at the top are well-intentioned...
Yeah.
A country like Libya will work freaking beautifully because there's enough monetary resources 5 times over for the people. Exactly. And the guy just like, there are going to be bribes at a local level, and we're going to, get ripped off from our vendors, and we're going to have incompetent people building houses, but at the end of the day, we're going to manage
what they want.
There is problems, that tells you even the successful socialist countries have problems. But now they go, okay, big bureaucracies are bad, and the Soviet Union failed, and therefore capitalism. Well, what happens when you get giant corporations? You have the worst kind of tyranny, because, see, if I don't know, Bunnings moves in the area, every local dude that had his own, hardware store is gone.
Yeah, definitely.
And, whatever, Pizza Hut, the local pizza joint, Pizza Hut can drop prices in the area.
Down.
And they keep doing that.
The same with Coles, all the supermarkets, Coles and Woolies.
Well, for instance, these big companies like Dan Murphy's, I know because I work in the alcohol industry, Dan Murphy's will actually sell certain products below cost. And make a loss on them, and then just put their products up on other ones. So if they see what other competitors are doing around the area, and they're having a sale on some, Smirnoff or something, then they'll just drop Smirnoff below cost, so no one can meet them, and then everyone will buy Smirnoff from there. And then while these other companies are having a sale, just to fucking completely have full spectrum dominance of the fucking marketplace.
You see, where does that? And at the end of the day, if you have these giant corporations, what is the role of a corporation? You have a general idea. You probably know the answer to this question, but in one sentence,